Britain was the world's first industrial giant. It played the leading role at the start of the Revolution. In 1807, the English merchant William Cockerell opened the first factories in Belgium. They were used for manufacturing, weaving and spinning machines. This impacted society because there was now a new and easier way to spin clothes. By 1871, Germany had taken over, and there was a new industrial giant. Many other countries were still adapting to this change. By 1900s, American industry led the technological world and still do today. There are several reasons why countries might not have developed as fast. First, they may not have had the resources, economic or natural. Take Russia for example. They had natural resources, yet they didn't have the economic or political stability. This slowed them down. On the other hand, countries like Japan that did have political and economic stability did not have natural resources. When industrialization hit, men and women, even children, changed from working long days in the fields to working long hours in factories. Factories were such a hit because of their ability to produce higher quantities at lower prices, and the demand for goods created more jobs. For example, buildings of cities and railroads and more. This meant people were unemployed and poverty was not as common. Factories needed a large number of workers to power driven machines to make the huge amount of goods that people were expecting them to produce. Engineers soon made up interchangeable goods, which were identical parts of a machine that can be used in place of one another if it broke or got damaged. These machines were easier to repair. Another handy method would be the assembly line. This was the production of a method where workers would have a specific job that contributed into making a good, with each worker having a specific job. You wouldn't need one person building the whole entire thing. By the late 1800s, many companies had hired professional chemists and biologists and engineers to develop new products and technologies. For example, perfume and other pharmaceuticals like medicines and flavored food became a huge hit. Henry Bessemer developed a new process which would purify iron, which made a new substance called steel. Steel was lighter, harder, and more durable. It was also a lot cheaper than iron. Steel quickly became one of the major producers in making tools, bridges, and railroads. The style of steel grew so quickly that countries measured their success in how much steel they were making. Another important person that impacted the Industrial Revolution was Alfred Nobel. He developed the first battery, which later led to the discovery of the dynamo. The dynamo was a machine that generated electricity. Thomas Edison later invented the first light bulb. His incandescent lights illuminated whole cities during the night. This, of course, quickened the pace of productions, since factories could still be productive after dark. Electricity quickly replaced steam power as the dominant power source. Soon, the forms of transportation were also modified. For example, sailing ships became steamships. Horse-drawn carts became either trains or cars themselves. Another important factor of the Industrial Revolution was the production of railroads, which led to trains. This was constantly improving, so there were always new, faster trains. Railroads also helped link the world together and made transportation inside countries much easier. Another important person would be Nicholas Otto, who created the first gasoline-powered engine. His colleague soon contributed by creating the first automobile. In 1903, the Wright brothers designed and flew their flying machine. Although it only stayed afloat for a couple seconds, it issued the flying era. Single-people flights would be soon taking over, but passenger flights would only start in the 1920s. Samuel F. B. Morse created the telegraph, which could send coded messages over wires, also known as the Morse code. Here is an example of the Morse code. New technologies needed new investment methods. For example, stock holding. Stock holding is only owning part of a large company. Owners would sell and own parts of the companies to create more money. Large-scale companies needed so much money that they sold huge amounts of stocks, thus becoming large corporations.
In the late 1700s, most people worked in the fields, on land they did not own. Those who owned the land, called aristocrats, lived refined lives in elegant manor houses. Servants raised their children and did their housework. The landowners and the people who worked for them depended upon each other. It was a system that had existed for centuries. In towns across England and the United States, a series of extraordinary innovations would alter the way people lived and worked for the next 150 years. Inventors had found new ways to harness nature's energy. They built new kinds of machines, powered by water, steam, and coal. The new machines replaced hand-powered tools. They did the same work, only cheaper and faster. Much of the work was done outside the home, in specially designed buildings, the first factories. Mechanization began in the textile mills of England, where one machine attached to a spinning wheel could do the work of 50 people. Fuel, clothing, and food all became more affordable. With the development of locomotives and steamboats, manufactured goods could now be sold halfway around the world. Families moved from the villages of their ancestors to new industrial towns. And a new class of people emerged, workers who produced goods. Industrialists, the people who owned the factories, employed hundreds, sometimes thousands of people. And they made enormous profits in their industrial centers. But while the Industrial Revolution brought wealth to some and jobs for others, it came with a price tag. Pollution from coal-powered factories turned the cities black. Lack of housing created the first urban slums. And the demand for more and more goods and higher profits brought the exploitation of workers, including children. Some of the worst conditions were seen in the textile mills of New England. In the 1830s, a 10-year-old mill girl described her life.
We were paid $2 a week, and the working hours of all the girls extended from 5 o'clock in the morning till 7 in the evening, with 1.5 hour for breakfast and for dinner.
It was the hiring of children, some as young as 5 years old, throughout the 1800s and early 1900s, that outraged the public. Workers and reformers protested. They formed unions and associations and fought for government regulations to limit the workday and protect children. These laws helped address many of the abuses brought on by the Industrial Revolution. Today, we are in the middle of another revolution, a technological revolution. We live in what's called the global village, because we can connect with people around the world as if they lived next door.
To move a mountain. During the Industrial Revolution, technological and socio-economic mountains were not only moved, but transformed, and the sweeping changes initiated in Britain eventually affected countries all over the world. In the 18th century, domestic peace, economic health, and the availability of critical iron and coal resources in Britain set the stage for change. Ingenuity turned the spinning wheel, a simple craftsperson's tool for hundreds of years, into a time and labor-saving device. It wasn't long before textile and loom factories essentially replaced home spinning and weaving. With the textile industry leading the way, the shift to manufacturing created unprecedented demand for new machines, mechanical components, processed materials, and skilled labor. Transportation systems expanded to keep up with the escalating flow of goods. Cities grew. Work became increasingly specialized, mechanized, and urbanized. An agricultural-based economy evolved into an industrial one. The marriage of science and industry produced great changes both at home and abroad. Eli Whitney's cotton gin, 1763. Charles Babbage's mechanical computer, 1834. The first steam carriage, steamship, and steam locomotive. All these inventions emerged within a very fertile 80-year span. And even today, many of the world's mountains are still being moved as the products and processes born of the Industrial Revolution continue to shape and transform our modern lives.